In the vast sweep of human civilization, few nations rise with such momentum, such resilience, and such unshakable determination as India, a land of timeless traditions and unyielding innovation, standing at the precipice of a new dawn. The story unfolding is not merely of a country, but of a force destined to shape the destiny of the world. This is the rise of India. Across the sweep of human history, civilizations have risen and fallen, yet some have endured with a resilience that transcends the passage of time. India, with its 5,000-year-old civilization, stands as a remarkable testament to the continuity of culture, tradition, and wisdom. From the banks of the Indus River, where some of the earliest planned cities emerged, to the sprawling metropolises of the present day, India's journey is one of reinvention and adaptation. Each era has layered upon the last, weaving together a tapestry of philosophies, sciences, and social structures that have shaped not only the subcontinent, but the very foundations of global civilization. In the stones of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, one can still trace the ingenuity of ancient minds who devised urban planning, drainage systems, and trade networks at a time when much of the world remained in darkness. This ability to innovate within the framework of culture is what has carried India through centuries of upheaval and foreign invasions, yet always returning with a renewed sense of identity. As empires rose and fell, India became a crucible of knowledge. The profound philosophies of the Vedas, the metaphysical inquiries of the Upanishads, and the spiritual path charted by the Buddha reverberated far beyond its borders. Mathematics with the concept of zero, astronomy with its celestial calculations, and medicine through Ayurveda all speak of a civilization deeply rooted in inquiry and discovery. These contributions did not merely serve India, but reshaped the trajectory of human understanding. Through trade routes and scholarly exchanges, India's ideas traveled to distant lands, influencing cultures as far as Greece, China, and the Arab world. Such intellectual legacies endure, reminding us that India's strength has always rested upon its ability to create knowledge and share it with humanity. The arrival of countless dynasties and rulers, from the Mauryas to the Mughals, brought with them not only conflict, but also synthesis. India absorbed and transformed influences, blending them into its cultural fabric without ever losing its core. The monuments of Delhi, the temples of the south, the paintings of Ajanta and Ellora, and the literary brilliance of poets and philosophers speak to a civilization that thrives in diversity and complexity. This adaptability, this power to endure while embracing change, has been India's greatest shield against the erosion of time. It is here that one begins to understand why India, despite centuries of colonization and subjugation, never ceased to be itself. The colonial era was one of immense suffering, exploitation, and the deliberate draining of resources. Yet even in the darkest of times, the flame of identity and resilience burned brightly. The rediscovery of ancient texts, the resurgence of philosophical pride, and the rise of reformers and visionaries ensured that India remained a civilization conscious of its past and determined for its future. Figures such as Swami Vivekananda carried the wisdom of India to global audiences, reigniting an awareness of the nation's spiritual and intellectual depth. This ability to hold on to civilizational pride amidst adversity demonstrates a strength that few nations can claim. With independence, India entered a new chapter, not as a fragment of its past, but as a civilization ready to step into modernity while carrying with it the essence of its heritage. The institutions of democracy, science, education, and industry were infused with the values of an ancient land that had always believed in balance, in dharma, in the pursuit of knowledge and justice. The blending of the modern state with the ancient ethos is perhaps one of the most remarkable transformations of any civilization in history. Where others have seen modernity as a break from tradition, India has seen it as a continuation of a long journey, one more layer upon the enduring foundation. Today, as we look at India standing on the global stage, it is impossible to ignore that this moment is built upon thousands of years of survival, learning, and reinvention. The civilization that once nurtured the wisdom of sages now nurtures the technology of tomorrow. The people who once studied the stars for spiritual insight now launch satellites into space. The society that once thrived on the sharing of ideas across trade routes now shares them through digital highways. India's civilizational continuity is not just a matter of history, it is a living reality, breathing into every aspect of its rise in the 21st century. Among the greatest forces shaping India's destiny lies in its people, and more specifically, its youth. In a world where many nations grapple with aging populations, India stands uniquely at an advantage, housing the largest youth population on Earth. This is not simply a statistic, it is a living reservoir of energy, ambition, and untapped potential. Walk through the bustling lanes of its cities, through the corridors of universities, or even the small classrooms in distant villages, and one is met with faces brimming with curiosity and hunger for progress. These young men and women are not bound by the weight of a colonial past or the slow pace of earlier centuries. Instead, they gaze forward, driven by the belief that their future lies not in imitation but in innovation. This demographic dividend is unlike any the world has ever witnessed. With nearly two-thirds of its population below the age of 35, India finds itself propelled by a workforce that is not only vast but also increasingly skilled. The sheer numbers are staggering, but numbers alone do not tell the story. What sets this youth apart is their adaptability, their capacity to embrace technology, and their determination to challenge old structures of limitation. In villages once marked by isolation, young people now connect to global conversations through smartphones. In towns that once depended solely on agriculture, students now dream of careers in artificial intelligence, robotics, or space exploration. The shift is seismic, and it is the youth who are the architects of this transformation. The spirit of entrepreneurship runs deep in this generation. No longer confined to the traditional pathways of employment, millions of young Indians are building startups that address problems unique to their communities, while also catering to global markets. From healthcare apps designed to reach remote patients, to educational platforms bridging the gap between rural and urban learning, their creativity is not only reshaping industries, but also redefining what it means to be a developing nation. They are proving to the world that India's rise is not about following the footsteps of others, but about carving its own unique path where tradition meets technology and necessity drives innovation. This enormous youth force is also reshaping India's cultural and social fabric. In their music, their art, their activism, and their voices on social media, one sees a generation that is both deeply aware of its heritage and unafraid to question outdated norms. They carry within them the confidence to celebrate diversity, to speak against injustice, and to demand accountability from those in power. It is this restless spirit, this refusal to remain silent, that ensures India's democracy is not static, but vibrant, continually evolving with the will of its youngest citizens. Their participation in shaping political narratives, their eagerness to influence policy, and their insistence on transparency inject a new vitality into the nation's democratic experiment. At the same time, India's youth are becoming global citizens without losing sight of their roots. Whether in Silicon Valley or in Bengaluru, in London or in Mumbai, young Indians bring with them not only technical expertise, but also cultural richness and resilience. Their ability to integrate into global systems while carrying forward the ethos of their homeland demonstrates the unique adaptability of this generation. This duality of being both global in outlook and Indian in spirit is a strength that magnifies their impact far beyond the borders of the nation. The sheer scale of this youthful energy also holds profound economic significance. As industries around the world face shrinking workforces, India stands ready to provide the talent, the skill, and the determination required to sustain global growth. International corporations, recognizing this, increasingly look to India, not only as a market, but as a hub of innovation and talent. The young workforce is not just filling jobs, they are creating them, driving sectors that range from information technology to renewable energy, from biotechnology to digital finance. This surge in talent ensures that India is no longer seen as a supporting player, but as a leader in shaping the global economy of tomorrow. Yet, beyond the metrics of growth and productivity, what makes India's youth extraordinary is their spirit. It is the unshakable belief that no obstacle is insurmountable, no dream too distant. It is the quiet determination in the eyes of a young student studying by candlelight in a rural home, the persistence of a programmer writing code late into the night, the courage of a young activist standing for justice in the face of opposition. These millions of stories, often unseen and unheard, collectively create the powerful narrative of a nation propelled forward by its youngest citizens. Across the expanse of India, from the towering Himalayas to the farthest stretches of its southern coasts, a silent yet profound transformation is underway. It is not forged in the corridors of palaces or the battlefields of empires, but in the villages and towns where the heartbeat of the nation truly lies. For centuries, rural India has been seen as the embodiment of timeless traditions, deeply rooted in agriculture, rituals, and community life. Yet today, this very landscape is being reshaped by a force as powerful as any army or ruler in history, the digital revolution. Where once distance and isolation dictated the rhythm of existence, connectivity now stitches together lives, bringing opportunities and access that were unimaginable just a generation ago. The arrival of affordable smartphones and widespread internet access has become the great equalizer, erasing the barriers between rural simplicity and urban sophistication. A farmer, once bound to the uncertainty of local markets, now checks weather forecasts, market prices, and agricultural techniques with the touch of a screen. A young student, miles away from the nearest city, now attends virtual classrooms, exploring knowledge once limited to elite institutions. The marketplace itself has expanded beyond borders. Artisans who once sold their crafts to local buyers now reach customers in distant continents. This empowerment, this ability to bridge the gap between tradition and modernity, is redefining the very identity of India's villages. The government's push towards digital infrastructure has accelerated this transformation. Fiber optic networks snake their way into the remotest corners, and initiatives that promote digital literacy ensure that the power of technology does not remain confined to the privileged few. Banking systems that once excluded the poor are now accessible through mobile platforms. Villagers who carried cash in cloth pouches now transfer money securely with a simple click. Such changes may appear incremental to outsiders, but within the fabric of rural life, they signify a revolution, altering habits, fostering trust in institutions, and encouraging participation in the nation's larger economic story. This shift is not only technological but psychological. For centuries, villages were seen as receivers of progress, waiting for innovations and policies to trickle down from cities. Now they stand as active contributors, shaping the direction of national growth. Young entrepreneurs return to their villages, armed with education and ambition, determined to solve local challenges with modern tools. Solar power projects light homes where electricity grids never reached. Telemedicine platforms connect patients to doctors hundreds of kilometers away. The village, once perceived as static, is evolving into a hub of experimentation, resilience, and progress. Culture, too, is finding new channels of expression through this revolution. Folk songs recorded on mobile phones reach millions on social platforms. Regional languages, once confined to oral traditions, thrive in digital content, ensuring that India's diversity does not fade but flourishes in the age of technology. Social media has given voice to the voiceless, enabling farmers, laborers, and villagers to share their struggles and triumphs with the world. In doing so, rural India is no longer a silent participant, but a vocal force in the national dialogue. The economic ripple of this transformation is profound. Micro-enterprises multiply in villages as digital payments and e-commerce reduce barriers to entry. Women, in particular, benefit from this shift as they engage in small businesses, digital education, and community networks that amplify their influence. The empowerment of women in rural India, catalyzed by technology, is not only reshaping households, but altering entire social structures, paving the way for a more inclusive and equitable society. Each smartphone, each broadband connection is more than just a tool. It is a gateway to opportunity, a chance to rewrite destinies. Global observers often speak of India's rise in terms of skyscrapers, highways, and urban expansion, but the true measure of its progress lies in these villages where digital sparks ignite aspirations that no wall of poverty or geography can contain. A child who once gazed at the stars with wonder can now track the launch of satellites from Indian space centers on a mobile screen. A craftsman who once believed his work would die with him now watches it celebrated across continents. The boundaries of possibility expand with each connection established, each individual empowered, each community transformed. In the story of India's rise, one cannot overlook the immense weight carried by its military strength and the evolving nature of its strategic defense. For centuries, the subcontinent has been a battleground where empires clashed and foreign invaders sought dominance. Yet from each conflict, India emerged more resilient, more determined to protect its sovereignty. Today, in an era defined not only by traditional warfare but by cyber threats, space security, and shifting geopolitical alliances, India's military stands as both a guardian of its people and a key architect of global stability and might. Its strength lies not merely in numbers, but in its growing sophistication, its commitment to modernization, and its vision of defense as a means of ensuring peace rather than conquest. The Indian Armed Forces, among the largest in the world, embody a legacy of discipline and valor. From the icy heights of the Himalayas to the vast stretches of the Indian Ocean, they safeguard a land whose diversity is matched only by its challenges. The soldier at the Siachen Glacier, braving unforgiving altitudes, represents the endurance of a nation that refuses to yield. The sailor navigating the blue waters of the Indian Ocean reflects India's determination to secure vital trade routes that sustain not just itself, but much of the world. The Air Force pilot soaring through the skies symbolizes India's pursuit of mastery over both traditional and modern theaters of war. Together, they form a triad of protection that anchors India firmly in the global security framework. Yet beyond the bravery of individuals lies the undeniable transformation of India's defense capabilities. Indigenous development of advanced weaponry, from missiles to fighter jets, signifies a shift away from dependence on foreign powers towards self-reliance. Initiatives like a Make in India extend into the defense sector, fostering a domestic ecosystem of research, manufacturing, and innovation. This move is not only about equipping the military with cutting-edge technology, it is about ensuring that the nation's security rests in its own hands, guided by its own vision. The successful testing of long-range ballistic missiles, the deployment of aircraft carriers, and the advancement of space defense systems speak to a nation determined to guard its sovereignty with strength equal to its ambition. Strategic defense for India, however, extends beyond its borders. Positioned at the crossroads of South Asia, the Middle East, and the Pacific, India's geography places it at the heart of global geopolitics. The Indian Ocean, through which the majority of the world's trade flows, is both a lifeline and a responsibility. India's growing naval presence is not an assertion of dominance, but a declaration of its role as a stabilizing force in one of the world's most contested regions. Partnerships with other democracies, participation in joint exercises, and contributions to global peacekeeping missions reveal an India prepared not to isolate itself, but to engage actively in shaping the balance of power. Modern warfare is no longer confined to land, sea, and air. The invisible battlegrounds of cyberspace and outer space demand vigilance of an entirely new order. India has recognized this reality, investing in cyber defense infrastructure and space programs designed not only for exploration, but also for security. The demonstration of anti-satellite capabilities sent a clear message that India is aware of the evolving nature of threats and is prepared to meet them. These developments illustrate that the nation's vision of security is forward-looking, aware that the conflicts of tomorrow may be fought in realms beyond the imagination of previous generations. At the heart of India's military strength lies a philosophy that distinguishes it from many global powers. It is not a force that seeks conquest or domination, but one that seeks deterrence, stability, and peace. The doctrine of no first use in nuclear policy, the consistent advocacy for disarmament, and the willingness to engage in diplomacy, even with adversaries, reflect a nation that understands the true purpose of power. Strength in the Indian worldview is not about aggression, but about the capacity to defend, to protect, and to ensure that peace prevails in a volatile world. The human dimension remains the most compelling element of India's defense story. Beyond the tanks, missiles, and ships, it is the will of its people, the courage of its armed forces, and the sacrifices made silently by families across the nation that embody the essence of security. Each soldier is not only a guardian of the nation's borders, but also a representation of its unity. Drawn from diverse cultures, languages, and traditions, yet bound by a single purpose. This unity in service becomes a reflection of India itself, a land where diversity finds strength in common resolve. The momentum of India's rise cannot be fully understood without grasping the scale of its economic growth, a transformation that has steadily shifted the balance of global power. Once described as a land of scarcity and dependence, India now emerges as one of the fastest-growing economies on the planet, charting a path that many analysts believe will soon outpace even the largest economy. This journey is not a sudden leap, but the result of decades of resilience, reform, and the indomitable spirit of a people determined to turn struggle into strength. The story of India's economy is a story of contrasts, of ancient bazaars merging with modern stock exchanges, of rural fields coexisting with high-tech corridors, of poverty being confronted by prosperity, and of a nation that has learned to transform challenges into stepping stones. In the early years after independence, India's economic path was uncertain, shaped by the burdens of colonial exploitation and the urgent need to feed, clothe, and shelter hundreds of millions. The focus was survival, self-reliance, and building the foundations of industry. The decades that followed brought experiments in policy, sometimes cautious, sometimes bold, always seeking to balance tradition with modernity. But it was in the closing decade of the 20th century that India's economy began to unfurl its wings. Liberalization opened the doors to global trade, investment, and competition, ushering in an era where India no longer looked inward in isolation but outward with ambition. Factories multiplied, services flourished, and cities began to pulse with a rhythm of enterprise and innovation. Today, India's economy is no longer defined only by agriculture, though its farms still feed hundreds of millions. It is powered by a diverse mix of industries, information technology that provides services to every corner of the globe, pharmaceuticals that supply medicines to nations in need, manufacturing that grows more sophisticated each year, and a digital economy that ranks among the most dynamic in the world. Cities like Bengaluru, Hyderabad, and Pune have become synonymous with technology and innovation, while traditional centers like Mumbai remain financial hubs of continental significance. This blend of old and new, of traditional industry and cutting-edge innovation, sets India apart, enabling it to build an economy that is both rooted in its past and attuned to the demands of the future. The numbers tell a compelling story. Growth rates that consistently outpace global averages signal not just progress, but momentum, a sustained trajectory that promises transformation on a historic scale. The rising middle class, now hundreds of millions strong, drives consumption and fuels industries that once catered only to elites. Infrastructure expands at breathtaking speed. New highways, bullet trains, smart cities, and renewable energy projects reshape the physical landscape of the nation. This infrastructure is not simply material progress. It is the foundation upon which future generations will build their ambitions, a framework designed to propel India into the ranks of global economic leaders. Global investors recognize this momentum, pouring resources into Indian markets, industries, and startups. The trust is not only in the sheer size of the market, but in the energy of its people, the capacity of its institutions, and the vision of its leadership. Trade partnerships grow, supply chains evolve, and India begins to assert itself not just as a participant, but as a shaper of the global economic order. In sectors such as renewable energy, India is no longer a follower, but a leader, demonstrating to the world how a developing nation can pursue both growth and sustainability. Yet what makes India's economic story particularly remarkable is its resilience. In the face of global crises, whether financial collapses or pandemics, India has shown an ability to absorb shocks and rebound with strength. This resilience stems from the diversity of its economy and the adaptability of its people. Small businesses flourish alongside multinationals, informal markets coexist with e-commerce giants, and farmers adapt new techniques while coders write algorithms for global platforms. It is a nation where survival and innovation walk hand in hand, ensuring that setbacks are temporary and progress enduring. The human element of this growth cannot be overlooked. Behind every new skyscraper and factory lies the determination of workers, engineers, and entrepreneurs who labor with the belief that they are not only building businesses, but building the nation itself. It is the young graduate who dreams of starting a company, the farmer who integrates new technologies to increase yields, the artisan who markets traditional crafts to global audiences through digital platforms. Their collective ambition fuels an economy that is not driven solely by profit, but by the shared aspiration of national progress. Among the many dimensions of India's rise, its achievements in science and space exploration stand as one of the most remarkable. For a nation once dismissed as struggling with poverty and underdevelopment, to now be counted among the pioneers of technological progress is a transformation that inspires awe. Science in India has never been a borrowed pursuit. It has deep roots stretching back thousands of years to ancient treatises on astronomy, mathematics, and medicine. What is unfolding today is not a sudden awakening, but a continuum, a rediscovery of that spirit of inquiry and innovation now propelled into realms that shape the very future of humanity. From decoding the mysteries of the cosmos to developing solutions for pressing earthly challenges, India's scientific endeavors are becoming symbols of both national pride and global respect. At the heart of this story lies India's space program, guided by the Indian Space Research Organization, known around the world as ISRO. Born in modest circumstances with early experiments conducted using humble equipment and borrowed facilities, ISRO has grown into one of the most respected space agencies on the planet. Its missions have consistently captured the imagination of millions, not because of extravagant budgets or displays of wealth, but because of their ingenuity, cost-effectiveness, and success against the odds. When India's Chandrayaan missions reached the moon, the world looked on in admiration at a country that had leapt into the ranks of lunar explorers with determination and precision. When the Mars Orbiter mission successfully entered the Martian orbit on its first attempt, India became the first nation to achieve such a feat, and did so with a fraction of the cost that others had spent. These triumphs are not just milestones of technology, they are statements of intent, proof that India belongs at the forefront of exploration. But space is only one part of India's scientific canvas. Advances in nuclear technology, renewable energy, biotechnology, and information technology showcase the breadth of its commitment to knowledge and progress. In laboratories and research centers across the country, scientists push boundaries, developing vaccines that reach not only India's population but millions beyond its borders, creating sustainable energy models to combat climate change, and pioneering digital solutions that redefine governance and commerce. In every field, the emphasis is not merely on catching up with the world, but on contributing uniquely to it, on offering models of innovation that are accessible, inclusive, and transformative. One of the most striking aspects of India's scientific journey is its ability to merge ambition with pragmatism. Unlike many nations whose research is confined to elite circles, India directs its science towards solving real-world challenges. Whether it is developing drought-resistant crops for farmers, affordable healthcare technologies for the poor, or satellite systems that monitor weather patterns to protect millions from natural disasters, the purpose of science in India is deeply human. It is science as service, as empowerment, as a bridge between knowledge and the lived reality of its people. This orientation ensures that India's scientific achievements are not abstract triumphs, but tangible forces shaping everyday life. The global recognition of India's scientific and space endeavors has been swift and significant. Partnerships with leading nations, collaboration on international projects, and the growing presence of Indian scientists in global institutions underscore the credibility of its progress. Nations that once saw India as a recipient of aid now seek its expertise, whether in space launches, pharmaceuticals, or renewable technology. The transformation from dependent to contributor, from follower to leader, is complete in this arena, and it is reshaping how the world perceives India's role in the global order. Yet beyond the machinery, beyond the laboratories and rockets, it is the spirit of the people that defines this scientific ascent, the quiet determination of researchers who labor through the night, the curiosity of young students who dream of reaching the stars, the resilience of innovators who persist despite limited resources. These are the true engines of India's scientific power. Their drive is not fueled by personal ambition alone, but by a collective belief that their work is part of a larger mission, a mission to place their nation among the great powers of human progress. This cultural reverence for knowledge, ingrained over millennia, now finds its modern expression in the pursuit of scientific discovery. It is a continuation of the same spirit that once gave the world the concept of zero and ancient astronomical insights, now channeled into the exploration of planets and the development of cutting-edge technologies. India's scientific rise is therefore not only about modernity, but about continuity, a reaffirmation that its destiny has always been linked to the pursuit of wisdom, and that wisdom today extends from the smallest molecules to the farthest galaxies. India's influence upon the world cannot be measured by economics or military might alone, for woven into the very fabric of its rise is a cultural resonance that extends far beyond its borders. Few civilizations have carried such an enduring and dynamic heritage, and fewer still have been able to project that heritage onto the global stage with such depth and diversity. The story of India's cultural power is not confined to museums or history books. It is alive in the rhythm of music, the vibrancy of cinema, the spread of yoga and meditation, the flavors of cuisine, the colors of festivals, and the spiritual philosophies that continue to inspire people across continents. It is through these cultural currents that India touches hearts and shapes identities, reminding the world that superpower status is not only about dominance, but about influence, not only about strength, but about the capacity to move the human spirit. At the heart of this cultural influence is India's ability to embrace diversity while retaining unity. The subcontinent is a mosaic of languages, religions, customs, and traditions, yet it has managed for millennia to weave them into a single civilizational fabric. This capacity for inclusiveness, this celebration of difference, has become one of India's greatest exports to the world. In an age when nations struggle with polarization and division, India's heritage of coexistence offers a profound example of resilience through diversity. It demonstrates that identity is not diminished by multiplicity, but enriched by it. This ethos radiates outward, inviting global audiences to appreciate not only Indian traditions, but the very idea of harmony and diversity. One of the most visible expressions of India's cultural reach is its cinema. Bollywood, along with regional film industries, has created a global following, its music, dance, and storytelling captivating audiences in Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and the Americas. These films do more than entertain. They project values of family, resilience, love, and hope, universal themes delivered in uniquely Indian ways. Alongside cinema, Indian music, both classical and contemporary, finds resonance worldwide. The sitar's strings, the tabla's rhythm, and the fusion of traditional sounds with global genres echo across festivals and concert halls, embodying a culture both ancient and modern, deeply local, yet universally appealing. Yoga and meditation, once the preserve of sages and hermits in Himalayan caves, now thrive as global practices embraced for health, balance, and spiritual growth. From New York to Nairobi, from London to Tokyo, millions gather daily on mats, breathing and stretching in rhythms that connect them to an Indian tradition thousands of years old. This quiet but profound influence reaches beyond the physical into the realm of philosophy, encouraging mindfulness, compassion, and a holistic understanding of life. India's spiritual heritage, transmitted through practices and philosophies, thus becomes a bridge linking modern lifestyles to timeless wisdom. Cuisine is another ambassador of Indian culture, its spices, aromas, and flavors spreading far beyond the borders of the subcontinent. Indian restaurants and dishes are now global staples, from curry houses in London to street food festivals in Sydney. Yet more than taste, the cuisine reflects a philosophy of hospitality, of community, of life centered around shared meals and celebration. Each dish tells a story of region, history, and tradition, making Indian food not just sustenance, but cultural dialogue, a way for the world to experience the richness of a civilization through flavor. Festivals bring forth another layer of India's global cultural imprint. Diwali, the Festival of Lights, is celebrated in cities far beyond India, its lamps glowing in neighborhoods where Indian communities have settled and where non-Indians join in the joy. Holi, the Festival of Colors, has become a symbol of exuberance, inclusivity, and joy, with celebrations taking place in parks and campuses across continents. These festivals transcend religious and regional boundaries, offering the world a chance to embrace joy, renewal, and togetherness. But cultural influence does not rest only on tradition. Contemporary India is equally a source of inspiration, with its authors winning global literary prizes, its designers redefining fashion, and its artists leaving their mark on the world stage. Indian voices are increasingly shaping global conversations in science, technology, politics, and art, their perspectives enriched by a heritage of resilience and diversity. This modern cultural confidence ensures that India's influence is not frozen in the past, but continually renewed by the creativity of its people. The diaspora, spread across every continent, carries this cultural resonance even further. Indians abroad act as bridges between their adopted homelands and their ancestral roots, sharing traditions, values, and innovations. In doing so, they extend India's soft power, amplifying its cultural presence in ways that no policy or strategy alone could achieve. The success of Indian origin leaders, scientists, entrepreneurs, and artists abroad reinforces the perception of India as not just a nation, but a global phenomenon, shaping and influencing societies far from its shores.